After the Raiders' impressive victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars, head coach Antonio Pierce raised an intriguing question about the significance of the #1 overall draft pick. His comments sparked speculation about a possible rift between him and general manager Tom Telesco. Some fans are starting to wonder if the two are on different pages, especially regarding the team's future direction. When asked about the draft pick, Coach Pierce seemed to downplay its importance, suggesting that winning games is what truly matters. He even cheekily directed the question back to Telesco, indicating that the draft isn't their main focus. In a follow-up, he reiterated that they aren't concerned with fantasy football or draft positions. Their priority is simply to win games. While it's clear that Pierce is focused on the present, it raises questions about his relationship with Telesco. After all, Telesco didn't hire Pierce, which could lead to differing views on the team's strategy. Recent rumors suggest that the Raiders might be considering a change at the head coach position, and Pierce's somewhat sarcastic response could hint at his awareness of this situation. Interestingly, during a recent owners' meeting, Mark Davis mentioned that both Pierce and Telesco would be evaluated separately at the end of the season. This is a departure from previous regimes, where coaches and general managers were often closely linked. For instance, Mike Mayock and John Gruden were tied together, as were Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels. However, Pierce comes from a different era, and Telesco's role is distinct from that. As the offseason approaches, it's important to remember that while fans may criticize Telesco, the roles of a general manager and a coach are quite different. The general manager is responsible for building the roster, while the coach focuses on leading the team on the field. The Raiders have a solid roster, and it will be interesting to see how these dynamics play out in the coming weeks. The Raiders currently have a solid roster, but the success of any team ultimately hinges on the coach's ability to maximize that talent. A general manager can assemble a great team, but if the coach can't lead them to victory, it won't matter. Conversely, a coach can sometimes work wonders with a less talented roster, showcasing their skills in getting the best out of their players. Right now, the Raiders are in a bit of a transition. While they have a good foundation, they still need a quarterback, a running back, and a top wide receiver, especially after trading away Davante Adams. Despite these gaps, many believe that Tom Telesco has done a commendable job in his first offseason. He's had to navigate the complexities of the salary cap and make strategic decisions, which takes time. Critics who suggest firing him after just one season may not fully understand the challenges he faces. A general manager needs several years to implement their vision and build a successful team. Recently, insider Josina Anderson reported that the Raiders are considering a new head coach while Telesco is quietly distancing himself from Antonio Pierce. This adds another layer to the ongoing speculation about the dynamics between the two. Mark Davis, the team owner, has also indicated that Telesco and Pierce will be evaluated separately, which suggests that their futures with the team may not be linked. Although Pierce is under contract for one more year, it wouldn't be a huge financial burden for Davis to part ways with him if a more promising coaching candidate, like Ben Johnson, becomes available. While Pierce has potential, he lacks experience as a play caller on either side of the ball, which can limit his effectiveness. If the Raiders can secure a top-notch head coach who can lead the team and call plays effectively, it could make a significant difference in their performance moving forward. The Raiders' offense has shown noticeable improvement in play design, especially since the arrival of Luke Getsy, who was hired by Antonio Pierce. This decision raises questions about Pierce's judgment, as it's uncertain whether he will make the right choices moving forward. If Tom Telesco decides to part ways with Pierce, it could be a logical step given the circumstances. As we look ahead to the draft, the implications of the Raiders dropping from the #1 pick are becoming clearer. It's not guaranteed that the top 2 picks will be quarterbacks, and history shows that teams often miss out on selecting multiple quarterbacks in the early rounds. For instance, in 2019, there was a lot of buzz around Kyler Murray, Drew Lock, and Dwayne Haskins, with expectations that at least 2 would go in the top 10. However, only one quarterback was selected in the first round that year. Similarly, in 2022, there was talk of Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, and Hendon Hooker being top picks, but the reality was different. Pickett was the only one taken in the first round, and he was picked at 20th overall. None of these quarterbacks have emerged as starters today. Looking back to 2021, 5 quarterbacks were drafted in the top 15, but 4 of them have already switched teams, with Trevor Lawrence being the only one still showing promise. The draft is unpredictable, and just because a team selects a quarterback early doesn't mean they will find success. For example, The Colts took Anthony Richardson as the third quarterback in his draft class, but his performance has been underwhelming. On the other hand, players like Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud are finding success, highlighting the inconsistency in quarterback selections. Moreover, great quarterbacks can be found outside the top picks. Players like Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love were drafted in the second and late first rounds, respectively, while stars like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes were not the first overall picks. This reinforces the idea that the best quarterback isn't always the one taken first. As the Raiders finish out the season, they may not end up with the sixth overall pick, especially with both the Titans and Jaguars still in the mix. The draft landscape is complex, and the Raiders will need to navigate it carefully to find the right fit for their future. As the season unfolds, the Raiders' draft position is still uncertain. With the Titans and Jaguars facing off next week, one of them will win and potentially drop behind the Raiders in the draft order. This means that the Raiders could jump to the fifth overall pick or even higher, depending on the outcome of the remaining games. The strength of schedule is also a factor, and teams can still win or lose, affecting the draft order. Given the uncertainty, the Raiders should adopt a conservative approach. If Tom Telesco decides to fire Antonio Pierce and take a quarterback in the draft, it's crucial to have a good coach to develop the young quarterback. There are several excellent coaches who specialize in offense and have a proven track record of success. For instance, Kyle Shanahan has had success with Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo, while Sean McVay has won a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford. A good offensive coordinator can make a significant difference, regardless of the quarterback. The Raiders should prioritize finding a top-notch coach to lead their offense. As for the quarterback, it's not guaranteed that the best one will be taken first overall. We've seen examples of quarterbacks being taken later in the draft and still achieving success. The Raiders should consider taking a quarterback with their third, fourth, or fifth overall pick, unless they're 100% confident that their preferred quarterback will be available in the second round. While there are several talented quarterbacks in the draft, the Raiders should also consider other positions. However, I do have reservations about taking Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boise State, with a high pick. Running backs are generally interchangeable, and it's possible to find a good one later in the draft or through free agency as long as the team invests in the position. This year's draft has shown that running backs can be found in the later rounds, and it might be wiser for the Raiders to focus on other positions, such as quarterback or wide receiver. In this upcoming draft, we can expect to see a strong group of running backs, with 3 likely going in the first round, another 3 in the second, and a few more in the third. All of these players have the potential to be successful in the NFL. The key to a strong running game often lies in having a solid offensive line, a good scheme, and an effective run game coordinator. If the Raiders focus on these elements, they can find success at the running back position without needing to spend a high draft pick. I wouldn't be upset if the Raiders decided to go with the best player available, whether that's Connor Lytle, Abdul Carter, or Travis Hunter. Strengthening the cornerback position is also a possibility, especially with Nate Hobbs set to become a free agent. If Hobbs doesn't return, the Raiders could consider moving Jack Jones to the inside and bringing in Will Johnson to play outside, creating a strong trio of corners with plenty of potential. The Raiders have options when it comes to their draft strategy. They could take a quarterback in the second round or even explore the possibility of acquiring a veteran like Kirk Cousins. While winning games isn't always the best strategy for improving draft status, it's clear that changes are on the horizon. I have a feeling that Antonio Pierce may not be with the team by the end of the year, but we'll have to wait and see how things unfold. Let me know your thoughts on the Raiders' draft strategy. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.